Okay, I am here today with Beth Kramer Mazer, who, first of all, thank you, Beth, for being here today. Your journey is just so inspiring to me. Please share it with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Jean. I'm so thrilled to be here today speaking with you. Glad to have this opportunity. So my journey, it's been a lifelong journey with many different chapters and twists and turns, as I'm sure is true for all of us. And I've battled off and on with weight issues throughout my adulthood. I had tried lots of different weight loss regimes over the years and health promoting strategies over the years. And I would have some success for some period of time. And then ultimately, when things got boring or life got in the way or, different things started to happen, I would fall out of sync with those strategies and would go back to sort of, not adhering to anything in particular, and would regain any weight that I had lost and would lose any fitness gains that I had achieved if I had been in a fitness regime. And, in this case, the last few years has really been one of my more successful, if not my absolute most successful times at working on my health. It began a few years ago with just a click of inspiration that I was ready to do something, just the act of doing something at all. It almost didn't matter what. And as it happened, I joined a friend of mine who had 2 weeks prior started doing Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers had at the time launched some kind of new system. They're always launching a new system with points or different gimmicks and things that they have. And I jumped on board with her. And it was actually a decent way for me to start because it just gave me some kind of structure that I was lacking. And it gave me a feeling of excitement about getting back on board with trying to improve my health. I was really quite overweight. I was feeling poorly about myself emotionally in terms of my physical appearance. And I really was starting to fear that my aging process would be at risk if I didn't take control and do something about this.
Right. You were on the journey to get on the medical treadmill.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't have anything technically that was diagnosed or anything like that. My blood pressure was fine and, cholesterol was fine, but I still feared that. And I knew that in time I would develop real problems because that's the trajectory that I was on. I was in my, early 40s and, not getting any younger, certainly not old, but not getting younger, and realized that it was time to just do something. And I was actually just a few months out from a very long, extensive educational program. I became a rabbi, and it took me 6 years of training that I started in my 30s and I crossed over and finished in my 40s. And so that process of being back in school for 6 years was the best thing that I did, but it was really hard on my physical health because what it meant was a lot of sitting and a lot of studying and a lot of commuting back and forth to school. I was also working and, of course, raising my children, and I have a wonderful husband, and just juggling too much and not putting myself on the list except for my studies and my work. Could not put my personal health on the list because I just felt I didn't have the bandwidth to make room for it. And of course, being just so sedentary with all of the classes and all of the study groups and all of the projects and the papers and, the tutoring, just things that I had to do in order to be ordained as a rabbi, it was so, so hard. I did not put my health on the list during those 6 years, and my weight increased and my health, was decreasing, I'm sure. So once I was finished with that, a few years ago, I started to feel the itch to begin to get, myself back on board with some self-care. And that's when I started. So I just to get back, I did Weight Watchers for a little bit and I had some initial success. But then what changed, this is really where things changed in terms of the trajectory of my life, is that I began to learn more about the importance of getting off of the animal products, the importance of a whole food plant-based or plant-exclusive diet. And I didn't take it overnight. I didn't adhere to all the things I was learning overnight by any means at all. But it started for me with a book by none other than Dr. Michael Greger, How Not to Die. or if anyone watching this or hearing this has not picked up that book, you must. It's available on audio or certainly in written format. I was doing a lot of walking during my early phase of Weight Watchers, and I bought this book on audible.com, and I listened to, I think it was like 11 or 12 hours worth of walking and listening. And I was so impressed and taken and inspired by Dr. Greger's messages about all of these different ways to prevent illness and death and the things that plague us as Westerners. And, we went through one by one different cancers and diabetes and heart and coronary health and all these different things. And he wasn't waving a flag of go vegan or, anything like that. But his message at the end of the day, at the end of each chapter, was that a plant-based or plant-exclusive diet is really the best way to achieve the prevention of these very serious health issues. And so I would say that during the course of, I don't know, maybe like a 2-week period, I really took these things to heart and made changes very quickly. Initially, I wasn't 100% vegan, but I definitely was vegetarian very quickly from learning more and more about the deleterious impact of these animal products. And I started to focus more on the whole unprocessed plant foods, not just vegetarian foods or vegan foods, but things that were less processed. And that's when my health began to change. And that's when I began to feel really excited that I was onto something bigger than myself.
Well, did your family face food issues as you grew up?
So going back to my family of origin, we ate probably what was a very typical diet for families in that time. And looking up and down the block of my lovely neighborhood in Massachusetts, it was sort of the same kind of style that every other family I knew was following. We ate chicken and turkey a lot, and a little bit of other, meats and some seafood, some, fish, certainly eggs and dairy, yogurt. I always loved yogurt, cottage cheese, a lot of the stuff that just seemed very typical. My parents were certainly promoters of eating vegetables and fruits. And so there was a lot of vegetables and fruits and some whole grains and things like that. And overall, certainly not a lot of fast food and not a ton of junk or anything. But, I was a normal kid growing up and went out with friends and went to social gatherings, and I went to summer camp and ate macaroni and cheese and fish sticks and things like that. And, just a very typical protocol, I guess you could say.
Well, you learned about how not to die.
Yes.
So was that the first introduction to plant-based living? What did you do after that?
So I would say it was probably my strongest introduction to plant-based living. I always knew that meat was not good for you. Of course, I knew that. And I knew that whole and less processed foods were better for you. I always knew for 100 years now that brown rice was better than white rice and, things like that. So I wouldn't say I was a complete stranger to some of the concepts, but there was something about this book that I immersed in that really gave me a much richer and broader picture, which was instrumental to my understanding. And from there, I just wanted to learn more. So from there, I then went on and I discovered T. Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn and Dr. Michael Clapper and Pam Popper and you, actually, Jean, ultimately, and Chef AJ and Victoria Moran and so many others. I'm sure I'm forgetting many others, but really the whole crew from across this nation, and Brenda Davis from Canada, of course. Really so many incredible people who are living and promoting a whole food plant exclusive or plant-based way of living. And that all became the only thing I wanted to learn about. And it was just interesting because for 6 years in rabbinical school, I was so immersed in deep, deep studies. And what happened to me really close to in this period, after rabbinical school, is I became again deeply immersed in my own studies, not with one classroom, not with one teacher only. I must have read 30 or 35 books, some of them on audio, some of them in paper format, on all different aspects of whole food plant-based living.
Well, which one do you think had the biggest impact?
Well, I would always have to go back to How Not to Die, but I also read all of Dr. Neil Barnard's books, and they're all a little different. I mean, like for example, with Dr. Barnard, as you know, Jean, one of them is called Power Foods for the Brain, which focuses a lot on brain health. So that's very different from the China study, which is a little bit about brain health, but much more about, the blue zones and places around the globe where there's great longevity and, other aspects of quality of health. So they're all different.
So you've lost, I think, at this point, I think 55 pounds?
Yes.
And you've kept it off.
So I have been able to keep off a significant amount of weight now for, more than a couple years. And that feels like a significant milestone and something that I hope and plan to sustain. I really don't want to ever gain the weight back. So I think I've found the way finally, after all these years of, 25 years of trying to lose weight and keep it off. I think I've really found the best way to do it. And it's the way that I feel in terms of my conscience most comfortable with, because I know that I'm treating not only my body well, but the animals and the environment that we care so much about, all of us,
right.
I hope. But through the principles really of calorie density, which Jean, I know you are a big teacher of, and others that I've learned from, it really comes down to eating whole natural foods as unprocessed as possible, with an emphasis on the principles of caloric density. That has been the if I had to say it in one sentence or a couple of sentences, that's the essence of what I've done.
Right? So give us a day in the life of Beth. What do you have for breakfast? What's for lunch? What's for dinner?
Okay, so about, I would say 85% of the time, this is a typical day. And then the other 15% I play around, and there are more fun foods and different foods, scattered around throughout the menu. But a typical 85% of the time day would be something like this. Breakfast. I like to wait a few hours. I don't eat right away. I wait till I'm hungry, usually 11:30, 12:30. And so I start my day. I'm drinking water. I'm exercising. Typically, I drink water. And then when I'm hungry, I start to eat lots of raw vegetables. I usually like to have a combination of different colored bell pepper slices, cucumber slices, cherry or grape tomatoes, and sugar snap peas. That's like my 4-pack of raw vegetables that very frequently find their way into my first meal of the day. And if I'm still hungry, I might have a clementine or a pear or some kind of piece of fruit with it. So I like to start off light. And what I've learned for me that works well, and I don't know if it's really optimal for everyone, but it seems to work well for me, is I start off light and I get a little heartier as the day goes on. And that feels good to me. So I do that. For lunch, I usually have a big salad with lots of different chopped things, cruciferous vegetables, leafy greens, some kind of allium, like whether red onion or scallion. So I'm really trying to hit, different kinds of nutritional profiles, lots of color. So if it's red cabbage, it's green leafies. If it's cherry tomatoes, it's yellow pepper. It's, a lot of variety, shredded carrot, chopped up broccoli or cauliflower or both, or broccoli slaw. Sometimes I use prepackaged bags of different kinds of salads, and I mix them up and I have it all ready to go, like just to scoop up the night before and throw in my Tupperware and bring it to work. So I have the base of a really great chopped salad with lots of colors, lots of fiber, and water, high in water content. And I like to top it almost always with something starchy for satiety and for an extra bit of satisfaction. So I top it with corn, or I top it with beans, all different kinds of beans, whatever I feel like adding, black beans, chickpeas, whatever. Sometimes I top it with some sweet potato that I just eat cold with my salad. I don't even heat it up. And so those kinds of things that I add to the salad really give it some more substance. And of course, there's a lot of bulk in there from all the raw vegetables. And then usually when I'm done eating that, even though physically I'm full, I feel that I need to eat something sweet. So I have some fruit generally. So it could be blueberries, or it could be an apple, it could be a pear, it could be, anything like that. I love all fruit pretty much. Yeah. Okay. So the day goes on, usually a few hours pass. And then, like Eugene, I often rely on a sweet potato for snack, or I guess a mini meal. So I follow the guidelines that, I don't know where I learned it, but pimp, keep a potato in my purse. So I don't really
The
keep it in my
potato hour. It's the potato hour.
potato hour, exactly. So I often will have stash. I have a little refrigerator in my office in the synagogue where I work, and I often have a sweet potato in there. Actually, almost always I have a sweet potato in there, or sometimes a Yukon Gold or little baby potatoes roasted. But I find that by including some kind of potato in the late afternoon, early evening, if I I'm going to have a late meeting and I don't know when I'm going to get to the dinner that I also probably pack for work, a potato can sometimes just get me through, and they're very satisfying. And the irony is, all these years I was afraid of potatoes.
I know, right? Right? Oh, carbohydrates, no!
Exactly. And now, I mean, I cook up a whole sheet at a time, and my husband and I eat them throughout the week, and I eat them either plain, or I put them in the air fryer and turn them into like oil-free French fries. And,
Oh my God, sweet potato fries with a little pumpkin pie spice on
so
them.
good. So good. I know, it's like dessert.
So good. So
So
who
good.
knew? Who knew?
I know. Well, I always thought that they were, you weren't supposed to have potatoes, but really they're low calorie. The problem is what you put on potatoes in the standard American diet. That's the problem.
It's the
Potatoes,
company they keep.
they've been maligned. They've been vilified, and it's not their fault. They've been falsely accused. So they're
True.
really so healthy. So definitely, almost always, there's potato in my life in the late afternoon. Sometimes I may even also have another clementine or another small piece of fruit. I don't shy away from fruit. I know a lot of people say sugar, fruit. Oh my God, you can't have it. And even when I was doing Weight Watchers, a wonderful person that I met, and I love her so much, but she's a Weight Watchers leader, and she said, really, like, for weight loss, you really only want to have 2 fruits a day. And I sometimes for sure have more than that. And to me, again, it comes down to calorie density. It comes down to trying to get high nutrition for your caloric buck. And fruit offers high nutrition for a relative low number of calories. And I'm not going to be too concerned about grams of sugar when it comes from fruit. That's not what gave me obesity. That's not what gave me.
What advice can you give to those who are just starting out?
Okay, so I would say you have to be prepared. You have to be willing to put in some time in the kitchen. I almost always have bean or lentil soups and stews ready to go because I can heat it up and have dinner in just a few minutes if I've prepared it. If I have it in the fridge and in the freezer portioned out, or just in bigger buckets, whatever works for you. So you have to be willing to put in the time. You have to, think about not just eating for today, but if you are a busy person, like most of us are, I mean, almost everyone I know is pretty busy, then don't cook just one potato or one small portion of brown rice or barley or farro or, quinoa. Cook enough to last a few days.
Chop, and prep.
Yes, absolutely. And I do.
One of the foundations.
It's one of the foundations. Twice a week or so, I really put the time in the kitchen. Is it torture? No. Is it my most fun part of the day? Probably not. But it's okay. You know what I do? I listen to YouTube videos or podcasts, and I learn and enjoy things while I go. And I prepare my big chopped salad in a bucket that I can scoop out and pack 2 days worth at a time, or 3 days worth. My husband uses it too. I cook a tray of squash or a tray of potatoes or a tray of roasted beets or, whatever I'm making. I don't make enough for 1 or 2 days. I make enough for 4 days or 5 days. That is really important. And I think if you're first starting out too, it's about maybe trying to mimic some of the flavors that you loved, and don't tell yourself I can't have it anymore. So if you loved Mexican food, then pile on the beans and the cilantro and the salsa. And if you use tortillas, use a whole grain tortilla. Don't use the white flour ones. Use the corn or whole grain. And, try to just make it about adding things that you can have, and don't dwell on what I can't have. Don't say, I love eggs. How could I never eat eggs again? You don't have to take that approach. Add the things you do that you can have that are whole, unprocessed plant foods that will make you happy, and eat in abundance. You don't have to measure every ounce. You don't have to make yourself
right.
crazy.
It's the freedom to eat.
It
right.
Is.
It is.
I think sometimes people like that I work with are shocked by the size of my salads, and sometimes
And
I feel
how much we eat. I mean,
I
literally.
know. I know. And sometimes I feel a little self-conscious about it. Like, like I'm overdoing it. But the truth is that if they understood the principles of caloric density, I mean, I see sometimes people I work with, they're eating like this little bitty like muffin that they got at the bakery or a little croissant. And that cannot be filling, but it's way more calories and fat and saturated, fat and cholesterol and God knows what else is in there than my big, humongous salad that they're staring at me. She's eating so much. What a glutton, um, so it's just really about learning about,
Right.
so I would say to someone new, like, don't be afraid to eat the volume that you need to be satiated. You need more beans, add them. Don't feel you have to limit yourself to 3 tablespoons because they're more calorically dense than the kale. I mean, and try things. I don't use a ton of recipes because I just like to kind of make my own stuff, but there is so much access right now. You don't even have to purchase the books. I mean, you could go to the library and or buy lots and lots and lots of cookbooks, but just online, Jean, your website, so many other websites, so many YouTube videos, Forks Over Knives, Chef AJ, what you offer.
Also on my website, Simply Plant Based, under I think it's under the recipes,
Yeah.
I put down at the bottom, there is a link to the top 50 websites.
Oh, yes, and yours is one I understand.
I know. I was so excited about that. I feel like I've joined the cool table with with the cool kids.
You were always at the cool table. But it's true. I mean, there is so much. You could live your whole life and never repeat recipes. So if you're one who wants to make a lasagna, or you want to make, you replicate something, that you want to make, meatballs without meat, whatever you want to do, it's out there, it's available. Try it, just try it. And, some recipes are fancy and complicated, and some recipes are easy and quick. Find what works for you, and just don't be afraid to try, and keep a list of what you loved, and toss away the ones you didn't love and never make them again. Some of them you're not going to like.
There's some recipes like, oh God, the dog didn't even eat that one. I mean, whoa, no, we're not eating that one again. But yeah, I mean, that's a standard question when I'm trying a new recipe in my house. When I talk to my husband, it's like, hey, does it make again?
Yes.
No. No, don't do that one. Or, oh yeah, like the Mexican lasagna. My husband, I will make that for. Honey, what do you want for this week for lunch? Mexican lasagna. We're on week 17. I can make other things. I mean, really. No, it's good. I like that.
Because when you find what you love, you're okay eating it again and again. Like this morning before getting on this call with you, Jean, I whipped up a batch of lentil chili, and I love lentil chili. My husband, I love it, and I never really get sick of it. Sometimes I might vary the seasonings a little bit, or throw in some other kinds of beans to go with the lentils, or who knows what. But I don't get sick of eating beans and lentil soups. I just don't, and I keep making them and making them and making them. But if I got sick of them, you bet your life away that there is a lot more to eat out there than what I eat. I mean, there's so much variety. If you think about it, going whole food, plant-based, or plant exclusive is that there's a few things you do not eat. Okay, you do not eat
animals, and no animals. If it has a mother or a face, no.
Okay. That's a simple
oil.
way to put it. So put it simply, no animals and no animal derived products such as dairy or eggs, right? So say that's actually 3 things if you want to put it that way. And then look at the plant kingdom. How many items can you eat?
I mean, thousands.
Is it more than 100? Is it more than 200? Is it more than 800? Is it more than 2,000? Yes. Is it more than 5,000? Yes. So if you think about what you can have, think about the abundance, and focus on the colors, and focus on the textures, and focus on the flavors, focus on the abundance. Don't think about what I cannot have. That's only 3 or 4 things. What can you have? Thousands of things.
I know. People ask me, so what do you eat? Grass? Dirt clippings? No, I save that for special occasions. I made a video of, and it's on my website, simplyplantbased.net, and I put on there, and it's like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of just picture, at 1 second, a picture of food. It's just, it just comes at you, and I'm like, this is what I eat. Not every day. I mean, but the variety is endless. I mean, because people think, God, that's all you eat is salads, and it's like, no.
Right. And the funny thing is, over the course of a couple of years, through 8 or 9 cookbooks, I almost couldn't resist. And there were just times that I bought cookbooks, but the truth is they sit on a shelf, and I really just go to the store. And I have I also do this like weekly organic fruit and veggie delivery thing. So I get a box every week with all different stuff in it. They're different fruits and vegetables. And so I go to the store and I get my box in the mail, and, delivered to my door. It's all certified organic. And that's what I eat. And of course I have pantry staples. And I love to look for inspiration on, like, again, YouTube videos and podcasts and things. The cookbooks are great also, but I really just don't rely on them much. So,
well, I do. I mean, I use them like when I'm going, like if I need to find a recipe, that especially like if I'm going to a potluck or something, for inspiration. I go to them for inspiration more than anything else.
Yeah. Sometimes I Google and I look at a few recipes, and then I just make up my own based on the inspiration from those few that I read. If I were someone who were not into cooking, I would follow recipes in the beginning. I'm an experienced cook, though. I mean, I like to cook. I'm a home cook. I'm not a chef. I like to cook and entertain. So I'm experienced in doing so. So I'm not afraid to mess around in the kitchen. I'm not afraid to try things. I have enough confidence to believe that what I make is going to come out well most of the time. But if I were not one who liked to cook, or if I were not experienced, I would be relying much more upon written recipes that have been tested, that have fan favorite, people who follow them and they're fan favorites. So there's no one way to do it. It's all just about jumping in and trying, just doing what your comfort level is. So if you're one who likes to follow step-by-step instructions and use quality tested recipes, go for it. There are thousands of them. There's just thousands of them wherever you turn on the internet or in these books. And on the other hand, if you're one who doesn't want to follow recipes and you're a little bit of a rebel in the kitchen, there's certainly nothing wrong with that either. Go walk around the produce section, buy some whole grains in the bulk department, or even at Costco or wherever you shop, Trader Joe's. It's everywhere. Get the good stuff.
And spices.
And
oh my God. My husband he's considering intervention because I keep coming home with spices, and he's like, honey, we there's no more space. I don't know where you're planning to put these. Like, it's okay. I'll find room. I mean, he's considering intervention.
Well, tell him that he needs to just allow it, because it's for the greater good. The truth is that spices make a big difference. I mean, you can travel the world in your kitchen with the spices that you own, And
I know my favorite is Bear.
Ethiopian.
Yeah.
Ethiopian.
Ooh, yumminess.
Delicious. Yes, That can be found online, if not locally.
You can get it at Whole Foods, and there's a recipe for Bear spice, because there's a variety of different recipes. Kim Campbell has one in her cookbook, Plant Pure Nation.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, definitely. But I just get it at Whole Foods. Done. I like that blend. Yumminess. Right. And it adds a beautiful, rich flavor. It's just incredible. With a little kick.
Kick. I use the website sometimes, Savory Spice, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of their products. They have very high quality salt-free products. They also have different blends with salt, but I avoid those. They have a whole bunch of different curries, for example. And they have vanilla powder, which has nothing added to it. It's just vanilla bean grounded up, which I like to add to Vitamix with some frozen fruit and a splash of unsweetened almond milk. And I turn it into like an ice cream. And the vanilla is just so delicious. So if you look online, or again, look in your local Whole Foods or, different kinds of places like that. Fairway by us has great spices as well. Collect and try different ones and buy the smallest size that they have and see how you like it.
Be brave. Go out and spice.
Yeah. The other thing are how do I put it? Unsweetened balsamic vinegars, no sugar added balsamic vinegars. So there's so many different flavors of these like rich, thickened, syrupy balsamic vinegars with no additional sugar. They're just sweetened by some kind of, infusion of lemon or infusion of fig or infusion of garlic or, hot peppers or different kinds of things.
Well, one of my favorites is Bima and Paz, and I'll put the link below. Yeah. Amazing. Right. That one. And I just found another one called LaRue Kitchens. And Oh my God. I'm in the store testing these things. I'm going nuts. I mean, and I'm just picking bottles up. Yeah, I know I'm taking these. But
So
when you
good.
have an opportunity to go to one of these infused balsamic stores and they allow for testing, for you to taste, oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
concentrated. So really 1 or 2 tablespoons is plenty.
Oh my
I
God,
keep
yeah.
a few of them in my office in my drawer. I have a few flavored ones that I keep there and they're so delicious. And I add them to salads, but I add them to other things too. Sometimes I drizzle that on a potato or on rice or on quinoa.
Or stir fry. Or I'll use them in the base of a salad dressing and
Yes.
they take it to Jedi level. I mean, the
They're
flavor.
they're
So,
very complex in their flavorings,
yeah.
actually. They're wonderful. So I again would say, Jean, focus on the abundance of what is available and don't focus on I can't have that. What can you have? Because
Right.
so much, and keep learning, Jean. I guess I don't know a few years into this, but the truth is that I'm still learning all the time.
It's
I
key.
it
Keep educating yourself.
Oh my God. You're
Key.
the best. I love it. I love it. Keep educating yourself. KEY. That's so true. It is key. That's
It
great.
is. It's key.
It's true. I mean, you have to always stoke the fire, I think, of your interest in this. And that's what sometimes I take a little break and I just watch YouTube videos or a Netflix show that's completely unrelated to this. But because I've become so passionate about this, most of my sort of consumption of media, whether again, like podcasts or books or YouTube or, documentaries, is really focused on issues relating to the whole food, plant-based, exclusive way of eating, the impact on the world, again, like the foods themselves, the health impact, the psychology of this all, the environment. I keep stoking the fire. And for me, it's really important.
Well,
Um,
you look absolutely amazing.
thank
I mean,
you.
you do. Your vibrancy, your health. I mean, it just comes right across. And every time I see you, you're just like again, amazing looking, even better looking than the last time I saw you. And
Ah,
and but
you're
what's
embarrassing
great,
me.
but what is great is we're doing this pain-free,
Mhm.
that our facilities are still in functioning and working, and we're taking on life, and it's awesome.
For sure.
So
I
I mean,
really,
you look incredible. I mean, 55 pounds, wow. I can't say that enough. I mean, you're seriously, you're rocking the house on this. You just look so beautiful, and thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story, because I know your story is so amazing and you're going to help other people. So,
thank you. I hope so. I hope that I can be helpful to people. And, I'm on Facebook. If anyone wants to connect with me, feel free to send me a friend request. But maybe if you can send me a note so I know that you're one of Jean's, followers. And I would love to connect, because the truth is, the other piece, I'll just close with this, is that the support network is really important. I
right.
would not have done this without people like you, Jean, and others who have been really important along my own journey and continue to be. And so if I can help others and as you and others have helped me, and if I can continue to have someone to turn to when I'm having a day where I'm just not in the mood to,
Pay it forward.
yeah. I mean, I need support too. Even though I'm in this a couple years, I need support. And I also really love to give the support. Having people who are like-minded is really helpful.
It is.
I'm very lucky because my husband and I are doing this together. He does not struggle with weight, but he's really interested in health. And so he eats the same way that I do, with a few more liberties because he can get away with it, in terms of like a little bit of more,
Well, I mean, like he eats more things like nuts, right?
Yeah,
And,
he eats
little,
nuts. He can eat more like pasta, that, and things like that I sometimes eat too, but not as much. But it's great. I have that support in my household, which is
right.
great. Very, very grateful. I know some people don't, and it's just really important to find people who are like-minded. And even if you live in a place where nobody is like you, we have the internet and we have text messaging. So you have to find your people who are doing this and make sure that you can lean on each other.
That's right. Beth, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, your journey is amazing and you look wonderful. And I know that you're going to be an inspiration for so many other people.
Thank you so much, Jean. Keep up your important work, and thank you for including me.